The morning of January 15, 2009 began like any ordinary winter day in New York. The cold was sharp, the air was tight, and the world felt wrapped in a silent frost. Inside LaGuardia Airport, thousands of passengers moved like tides, some rushing home, some flying to new beginnings, some escaping old endings. Among them was Captain Chesley Sullenberger, a 57-year-old pilot with over 40 years of experience. People simply called him Sully. He wasn't loud, he wasn't flashy, and he wasn't a man who sought attention. Instead, he was calm, thoughtful, disciplined, the kind of man who carried storms inside but showed sunshine on the outside. That day, he was assigned to command U.S. Airways Flight 1549, a short journey from New York to Charlotte, North Carolina. In the airport terminal, passengers waited with bags full of clothes and hearts full of stories. Businessmen typed on laptops, parents held children close. A young couple argued softly about their future. A soldier in uniform wiped his eyes quietly after hugging his family goodbye. None of them knew that in less than an hour, their lives would depend entirely on one man. A man who had no idea that destiny was waiting for him just miles away in the open sky. At 3:24 p.m., Flight 1549 pushed back from Gate C-15. Sully sat in the left seat, calm as ever. Beside him was First Officer Jeff Skiles, a skilled pilot who had recently transitioned to this aircraft model. They exchanged routine checks, their voices flat, professional, and steady. Engine stable, flight control set, fuel checked, takeoff configuration normal. Everything felt right. Among the 155 souls on board, 150 passengers, 3 flight attendants, and the 2 pilots, not a single heart sensed what was coming. The plane taxied down the cold runway. The engines roared. The wheels gripped the earth one final time before lifting smoothly into the winter sky. Inside the cockpit, Sully felt the familiar quietness of concentration, the calm he had mastered over decades of flying. Flying wasn't just a job for him, it was a dialogue between man and sky. But even the sky has days when it refuses to cooperate. At 3:27 p.m., just after takeoff, the aircraft climbed through 2,800 feet when it happened. A sudden darkness passed over the windshield, a wave of birds, geese, large, heavy, deadly. Before Sully could react, a sound like cracking thunder exploded through the aircraft. Boom! 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 Birds slammed into both engines. Inside the cabin, passengers screamed as the plane jolted violently. Inside the cockpit, alarms screamed. Engine pressure dropping, fuel flow disrupted, left engine failing, right engine spooling down. Within seconds, the Airbus A320 became a 70-ton glider. Silence. A terrifying, unnatural silence. Jeff Skiles stared at the dead instruments. Sully stared ahead, his mind calculating faster than fear could enter. "We've lost thrust on both engines," he said calmly, a sentence almost no pilot ever expects to say. The radio crackled. "LaGuardia Tower, this is Cactus 1549, Sully said. "We've lost both engines. We're returning to LaGuardia." Controllers scrambled, offering runways, but Sully knew the truth in just 10 seconds. They wouldn't make it. The altitude was too low. The speed was bleeding away. The engines were gone. Jeff tried restarting the engines. Nothing. "Mayday, mayday. Cactus 1549. We cannot make LaGuardia," Sully said. The controller offered Teterboro Airport, closer than LaGuardia. For 2 seconds, Sully considered it, but in those 2 seconds, he saw the truth. The plane would fall short. They would crash into buildings. Thousands could die. "No," Sully said, almost whispering to himself. "We're going to be in the Hudson." The words weren't dramatic. They weren't heroic. They were simply true. He turned the aircraft toward the smooth, freezing river below. A river that was never meant to be a runway. A river where no large passenger aircraft had ever landed safely. But Sully believed he could do it because he had to. At the back of the plane, terror spread like fire. A woman clutched her baby to her chest. A teenager texted his mother, "I love you." A businessman whispered prayers he hadn't said in years. Some passengers held hands with strangers. Some closed their eyes. Some waited for the end. The flight attendants shouted, "Brace! Brace! Heads down! Stay down!" The passengers didn't know the river was below. They didn't know the engines were dead. They only knew one thing: they were falling. As the aircraft descended, Sully saw a ferry, tiny in the massive river. Skyscrapers towered over both sides of the Hudson. The water looked black, frozen, merciless. He aligned the plane perfectly. Wings level, nose slightly up, speed controlled by instinct alone. Inside the cockpit, time slowed. Jeff Skiles held his breath. Sully whispered to himself, "Come on, come on." At 3:31 p.m., just 208 seconds after the engine strike, the Airbus A320 touched the Hudson River. Thud, thud, boom! Water exploded around the fuselage. The plane slid across the surface like a skipping stone, until finally it stopped. Silence again. But this time, it was the silence of survival. Sully opened the radio. Tower, this is Cactus 1549. We're in the Hudson. We're evacuating. There was no panic in his voice, just truth. He walked down the aisle, water rising at his feet, checking every seat. Is anyone there? Is anyone injured? Move, move, move. Evacuate. Passengers stepped onto the wings, freezing wind cutting their faces. Ferries rushed toward the plane. Boats, helicopters, police, all converged. Within minutes, every single one of the 155 people was rescued. Not one life lost. Against every law of physics, every rule of aviation, and every expectation of survival, Sully did the impossible. But heroes don't always get applause right away. Investigators questioned Sully's decision. Why didn't he return to LaGuardia? Why not Teterboro? Was landing on water the wrong choice? Simulations were run, graphs were printed, experts argued, but they forgot one thing. Simulations don't include fear. Simulations don't include chaos. Simulations don't include human lives screaming in the back. Simulations don't include the weight of a decision made in seconds. Finally, investigators allowed pilots in the simulator to redo Sully's scenario. Every single pilot crashed. Every single one. Only when a 35-second human reaction delay was added, the real delay every human has in crisis, the simulation proved Sully was right. He had saved 155 lives. Not by luck, not by chance, but by mastery, experience, and courage. The world erupted in praise. News channels called it the miracle on the Hudson, the most successful emergency landing in aviation history. The day a pilot saved 155 lives, Sully became a global symbol of calm, leadership, integrity, and humanity. But he didn't see himself as a hero. He simply said, "I was just doing my job." Yet, the passengers didn't agree. One man said, "I saw my children again because of him." A mother said, "He saved my entire family." A young woman said, "He gave me a second life." And Jeff Skiles, the first officer, said, "I've never seen anyone so calm when everything was falling apart." Today, Captain Chesley "Sully" Sullenberger is more than a pilot. He is a reminder of what humans can do when the world collapses around them. His story teaches, leadership matters, calm saves lives, experience is priceless, integrity is everything. Heroes look ordinary until the moment they are needed. Flight 1549 wasn't just a landing, it was a message to the world. Hope is real. Courage is real, humanity is real, and sometimes a single person in a single moment can save 155 souls and restore faith in millions.